the United Nations in Zambia had appointed 24 different advocates, and they're basically going to be working with us. It's sort of like an ambassadorship program, right?
Oh, what makes you so bored?
God.
Do you believe young people should join formal politics, or maybe just advocacy is enough?
I believe there's a whole political ecosystem that's involved, right? Everyone can be an advocate, which is the most amazing thing about advocacy, but not everyone can be a politician.
And let me tell you, a lot of young people, if they would say, we would really love to have a leader like her. She's bored, she speaks so well, she's what. Would you consider running for maybe member of parliament, councillor? Would you consider taking up any leadership role?
You know, it's a question that has followed me since I took part in junior president years ago. It's like, do you want to actually be president? Leaders in those spaces, people of influence, people with power, people with money, people who can connect to individuals. That's what makes a political system. And because
you're not afraid to call things out. Have you ever faced any backlash from any leader? And if you did, how did you handle that?
Trust me, politicians and I were not the best of friends, because you'd go in meetings, you'd have conference rooms, and you're just sort of calling them out and making it seem like there's nothing you're doing. But the older you get to realize that.
Natasha, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Mary. I'm excited to be here.
We're excited to have you here. Let's just get to know a little bit about you. What did you study? What are you doing now?
Yeah, so that's two things, right? My name is Natasha Chibesa Wagman. So I have 4 names, and I love them all because Chibesa means a blessing. It's a name that's given to the matrimonial side of my family. And then Wang means king, because I love to say that we have to rule, you know, we have to reign as young people and as believers too. So which brings me to my second point. For my identity, I am a Christian. I love God with everything that I have, and so for me that's always super important to bring out and explain. And with what I studied media and communications with political science at the University of Zambia for my undergrad, and for my master's I'm studying international relations and human rights. And it's honestly just showing a lot of what I am passionate about, which is the human rights area, developmental sectors, and just everything impacting the lives of individuals. And currently I am working as a digital marketing specialist with Bridges to Prosperity Global. So it's really exciting because what we do is we work in rural access and just ensure that everyone gets what they deserve, because safe access at that, is a human right, and having to fight for this and push for it has been one of the greatest joys of my life. So that's what I currently do, and I am eager and excited to be part of this conversation. Thank you.
Great. We saw you as one of the advocates for 2025. Let's talk about that.
Yes, so the United Nations in Zambia had appointed 24 different advocates, and they're basically going to be working with us. It's sort of like an ambassadorship program, right? Working with the United Nations in Zambia and across different parts of the world to make the Sustainable Development Goals a reality for each and every individual around the world, and especially in Zambia. So we were selected by different UN agencies. So far it's been quite amazing and interesting. I have been part of the UN system for quite some time, so for this official appointment feels like a whole different side of it. And in as much as, you know, working with the UN is something I've done for quite some time, it's nothing to get used to. It's honestly an honor to be here, and above all else, it's just great to work with other people and just fight for the rights of individuals and make sure that everyone gets what they deserve. So yeah, that's what it's about.
What makes you so bored?
God.
I like that.
That's one of the biggest reasons why I do what I do. You see, we see it in the Bible when David goes in the army. He's taking food to his brothers, right? And then he meets them, and then he's passionate. He's like, what's going on here? And they look at this young man and they're like, why are you like this? You know, why are you so stubborn? Why are you so eager and everything? And then he says, is there not a cause? So you see, whenever you have a God-given purpose, a drive in you that you know is from God, it comes with a passion that is relentless. You know that if you're not competent enough, like Daniel standing before kings and queens, if you're not competent enough and bold enough to speak out this message, then people won't hear you, and that's where the problem is. So it comes with the calling, right? The calling from God,
from the Almighty.
Exactly. And even just the passion for the work. After some time, I won't claim that I was always this passionate and confident in this field when I started off, but I do know that there's a lot of working on this continuously that has sharpened that ability to just speak out confidently and be able to say, yes, this is what we want done, and how can we get it done, and then put everything we can in it. So it definitely is from God, and just the work itself, it's worth it.
Do you believe young people should join formal politics, or maybe just advocacy is enough?
I believe there's a whole political ecosystem that's involved, right? So for young people, they have to do both. And one thing is, we can't all be politicians. We can't all, there's a reason why we only have one president of Zambia, you know. So there are only enough seats for a particular number of people. But I also believe that everyone can be an advocate. Not everyone can be a politician, but everyone can be an advocate, because there are different advocacy definitions and the different political definitions, right? So in a political ecosystem, it's important that everyone finds their role to play. So we need young people in the system. We need them with positions of power, because when we go there and demand for certain things, they need to be the voice of young people in what young people need. And everyone deserves representation on a seat of decision making at such high places. But also, we need people to influence those decisions. We need people to influence policies. We need people who are on the ground working with different individuals and come and say, hey, this is what we actually need and want done, and we have to put pressure on that. So it's everyone has to find their place in the political system. But I also believe that we're all advocates. You know, it may not be by title. You know, we can't call you an advocate, for instance, but the fact that you care about what happens to people, about the decisions that impact individuals in the sense of development, means you're an advocate, because you care about it and you're doing something about it. You're providing a platform for people to speak out, for these voices to be amplified, and your voice itself is speaking on their behalf. So everyone can be an advocate, which is the most amazing thing about advocacy. But not everyone can be a politician. But that doesn't mean that young people deserve to be this and that. No, it just means that when it comes to politics, we have to know it's about representation. And as long as they can represent young people, then let them have it. But everyone can be an advocate, because if you care about something and want to speak about it, then do so. That will really help with progress in the developmental space.
Great. Natasha, you speak so well. You're so bold. You're so brilliant.
Thank you.
Let me tell you, a lot of young people, if they would say, we would really love to have a leader like her. She's bold, she speaks so well, she's what. Would you consider running for maybe member of parliament, councillor? Would you consider taking up any leadership role?
You know, it's a question that has followed me since I took part in junior president years ago. It's like, do you want to actually be president? Well, how would I put this? Consideration has been made, right? I have thought about what that would look like, but I also believe that there are different ways that we can influence policy, even in the spaces that we're in the work that we do, in the relationships we build, in the networks that we are found in, right? So it's not always about aspiring for that position. You know, not everyone should aim to be a mayor. And I'm not saying don't aim for it, right? Everyone has their own dreams and pursuits, but I just believe that we need to look at other ways to make decisions or other ways to lead. For instance, there's a whole thing that a mentor of mine, my man of God, always teaches us. He's a developmental analyst, and he says, you know, there are 7 mountains of influence, and research is currently showing that there are 8, including health, and it starts all the way from family, government, schools, media and entertainment, politics, and so much more, right? In all these spaces, we need people speaking out. We need leaders in those spaces, people of influence, people with power, people with money, people who can connect to individuals. That's what makes a political system. And because sometimes we think, oh, politics is just all about you have a position. No, politics is about making decisions that impact the lives of others. How do people get what they need when, and who gets that, right? And so if you can be a leader in any of these spaces, in any mountain of influence, in any sphere of influence that you find yourself in, then you're doing a great job, and that's where you're supposed to be. So the aim should never, you know, not that it should never be, but it shouldn't always be, I need to become an MP, that's when I'll make the most impact. No. Impact is felt in influence. And if you can get that influence in any space you're in, then you're good to go. Politics in Africa generally has got its own frustrations for everyone, right? We have different ways that we see things. We have different demands. What I feel should be done is different from what you would feel should be done, or any other individual in the world. And I was recently in Rwanda, and honestly, I was amazed by just how things are working, even with like the urban planning. They're currently demolishing certain houses and just making sure that everyone has got like a certain level of housing. So, you know, it's a lot of consideration on that part. Yeah. And it's like the more exposed you are to how other people are doing things, the more you realize that, wait, this is actually possible. So even in my same experience with Rwanda, I did not know, Mary, that you could be driving for hours on end and not hear a single engine, because everyone is using either a semi-electric car or hybrid rather, or an electric car. And I didn't realize how peaceful that sounded and how fresher the air is. And I realized that, wait, some of these things that we're constantly advocating for are realities in other places. It means that there's just a lag that needs to be filled, right? So I wouldn't term it as a frustration. I just believe there's need for an urgency in bridging the gap between certain advancements that the world is having right now and the policies that have been implemented to ensure that we catch up to that, right? So for instance, we look at the digital means. Everyone is going digital. I mean, if you go a day without using ChatGPT, we should probably give you an award, right? Because everyone is going digital. Everyone is relying on technology for every single thing that they're doing. So it means that we now have to start aligning our technology, our security, our laws, and all those things to ensure that we actually catch up with what's in the world right now. What are these advancements like? So it's just a gap in that. And I'm not even trying to say like everyone is perfect. Like I said, it's in Africa. It's all around the world. There's certain policies that always just end up leaving a gap between implementation and catching up with the rest of the world, right? Another key thing for me is an awareness for the need for urgency around what access looks like. So we all know about human rights. We all know that they're due to people because you're a human being. I can't take away your right to education simply because, you know, I'm Natasha, you are Mary. So because my name starts with N and just, it doesn't work like that. You are a human being and this is what you deserve. But in many cases, being a human being is not enough to have your rights actualized. There is need for access to those opportunities. So you have the right to education, but how many schools are you able to afford? How many schools actually give you an education that makes you a better human being? Because the idea is all these human rights are connected. You get an education, you have the right to work, so you get an education to work. But if you don't get a proper education, how will you fulfill your right to work, right? So access also needs to become a huge part of planning and implementation. And I think one of the greatest downfalls when it comes to leadership is assumptions, right? Assuming that certain things are already in place because it's how it's been going, it's how it's been working out, it's looking good, but not really. There are many people that lack access to basic opportunities for them to actualize their human rights. So if we can bridge the gap between what we idealize and the actualization of that, with giving people access to those services and opportunities, then we're doing a much better job in leadership and just all around. And another thing I'm really passionate about is health, right? So you mentioned how, you know, before it was like working with the UN and there are all these platforms, and one of them is with the World Health Organization. My advocacy in health for years on end came through with them, and for me, just seeing the impact that one single policy can have on an individual is amazing. And it just goes to show that whenever we provide these services, whenever we create a linkage between this is what your right is, we raise the awareness, we create the access, but also we create those opportunities, then we have whole lives that are actually being developed and that are actually being built. And that is where we need to start focusing on. We need to not just look at being in a seat of power, but how that can translate in lives being impacted. And these are some of the steps that we need to take, you know, ensuring that the gap between implementation and catching up with the actual advancements that bring development is filled, but also realize that access plus services being provided is also important for people to enjoy and just live the best lives that they can.
Great. You're not afraid to call things out. Have you ever faced any backlash from any leader? And if you did, how did you handle that?
Your assumption that I'm not afraid is very interesting. I do believe...
I don't know, guys. It's the energy. Let me tell you, I think it's that clip I watched.
I get
that clip literally gave me a whole board, you know? Girl. I'm like, she's only 18, and if she can speak like this, we send her to speak to leaders, she's not afraid to call things out. I believe that. I mean, you showed me that.
Yeah. No, I do agree that fear should not be a factor, but there's a way that I would like to define that. I don't think it's that no one is ever afraid. I think there are instances when we think and we say, okay, this is pretty bold. And I think that's what separates bold people from other people that are not. It's that regardless of that fear, regardless of that doubt, they still go ahead and do it.
Yeah, yeah.
And they do it confident enough to say, look, this has to be done by me or no one else. And it's not trying to make it seem as though there's no one good enough for that. It's just making it say that, look, I can do it, so why not me, right? And so that's really the mindset that each and every one of us should have, that we all feel it. We all have our doubts. We all have our moments of concern. We all wonder saying, is this the right way to say it? If I say to this individual, what feedback are they going to give me, right? And we've seen it going all around the country. There's a certain way people want to speak out, but, they're being held back by certain things. And you have to learn to decide what's worth fighting for. And dare I say, what's worth dying for, and you live for that in itself. And so once you decide what that is, and also you just learn to be more diplomatic. When I was younger, trust me, politicians and I were not the best of friends, because you'd go in meetings, you'd have conference rooms, and you're just sort of calling them out and making it seem like there's nothing you're doing. But the older you get to realize that these individuals are not, they're your moms in the kitchen after a work day is done. They're people at a grocery store buying tomatoes and onions. They're just like each and every one of us, trying to make decisions that they feel is best to be made, right? And so until we get to a place of understanding that and saying, okay, we need to be diplomatic about this. How can we sit down and have conversations that we're not attacking each other, but we're trying to create some form of relationship and connection here? It makes the backlash easier, because now it's a partnership. So if something isn't done, you don't attack your partner. You just let them know, saying, we now have to hold you accountable because this was the agreement. So that's how I have dealt with it over time, right? You just learn to partner with people, let them know what their role is and what yours is, and then come together and then create a system of accountability around that. Because even in accountability, it's two parties. So even maybe there's something I need to do better that they can point out, and there's something they can do better. So that's how you deal with backlash moving forward. Just be a lot more diplomatic about it, and be extremely deliberate about creating partnerships as well. Not just with the politicians, but every other sphere of influence or any other person that you end up engaging with. So that's very vital. And then secondly, not everyone will love you. Not everyone will be for your cause. You're not...
Even
Jesus,
you don't
right?
love everybody. So
I mean, you should love everybody, but you don't like everything they do, So you just have to learn to understand that not everything will be everyone's cause. There are times when I found myself in advocacy spaces and I am asked to speak on something, but I'm like, that's not what I stand for. So I will not. So you have to learn to understand that not everyone will be for it. And that means you will receive negative feedback on that. From politicians, from fellow peers, from your parents even your friends can give you that backlash, right? So even as you're speaking out, you have to go in and understand that it's not for everyone. Your focus should be on the people that you're trying to impact and the people that will rally and support you. And even those that give you the negative feedback, as a leader, you have to develop the mindset of, how do I learn from this and apply it better next time? Because they're not attacking you, they're attacking what you're doing. So maybe there could be something you need to change. It's like what a certain man of God once said, saying, if someone says, hey, you have a tail, don't mind them. Someone else says, hey, you have a tail. You're sort of like, okay. A third person, please check. Please check if you have a tail. So it's important that you actually take this feedback and work on it. But have your own security measures, be as diplomatic as you can be. Working in these systems also teaches you to be very, what's the word I'm trying to, to use the right words. I don't know where the definition of the word has gone, but to use the right words and frame it right and communicate it better. So that's how I'd handle that.
Great. If you were president for a week, what 3 things would you do for the young people?
President of what country?
Zambia. Of course, it's our country. What are the things that you are changing?
I figured.
Immediately.
Immediacy is a very interesting spin to it.
You have the power. Maybe it's God telling you to say, just give me 3 things that you want and consider them done.
What would I change? Well, healthcare for me would be very, very key. I I have worked in healthcare for quite some time. It's been an advocacy space of mine, a passion of mine. I have lots of academic qualifications in healthcare as well, and just like public health itself. And I feel one of the things that we may be overlooking is just how urgent some of the rising cases are. I'll give you an example of diabetes, right?
Yeah.
So currently, you would go to Kulima Tower, and on a bus, you can assume at least 5 people have got diabetes.
Yeah.
So that's how rampant it's becoming. And it's not even elderly people, it's young people.
True.
And so you find that if we're not addressing certain health concerns, then that affects the functionality of all other sectors, right? If people are not healthy, how will they make money? How will they go to school? How will they lead consciously, right? So you need to ensure that we need to ensure that we have systems in place to address the emergencies that are rising before they actually become pandemics in and of themselves. And it's actually estimated, I'm trying to remember the statistics, but you know, it's like 1 in 4 diabetic people, right, have to have their legs amputated. So
True.
it's becoming a huge concern. I mean,
It
earlier
is.
we had a conversation about you've seen that go
Yes,
on in places, right? So
Yeah.
you see, it's becoming a huge concern, and health in itself is very expensive. If the healthcare system of a country is not, if people are not healthy in a country, then it means that we're going to have to take more and more money towards that. So it's not economically sustainable if we're not addressing health concerns before they become issues. So to address issues like that, what are some of the rising health issues, rising health cases, rising diseases and the like, and how can we address them before they continue, right? Stop them in their tracks, and even stop them before some of them even come on board. So health would definitely be one of the key things I would look into. The second thing I would definitely look at is creating access for everyone, because I am of the absolute belief that where you're born should not determine what you get. Everyone should have the same quality of life regardless of where they are. So creating that access to opportunities, creating access to services, creating access to marketplaces, even to play, you know,
Yeah.
everyone deserves all those things. So creating a system that actually embeds access in planning, and that will be very, very important. And this should be translated in how we plan around things like urbanization, right? How we plan for sustainable cities and communities. What is climate change to us? How do we address some of the rising concerns in health, in education, in economic activity, and so much more. So that will be the second thing I'll definitely look at. And the third thing is creating a feedback mechanism that works for everyone, right? As a leader for quite some time, I've come to realize that receiving feedback from the people you're leading is so important, because you're doing this with them, and that's what a democracy is. You need to be democratic. It's Abraham Lincoln saying democratic is for the people, by the people, with the people, and you know, all those things, right? It's the people that have to be center. So creating a mechanism that allows them to give feedback and allows them to be part of the decision making, allows them to be part of it from the onset to even reviewing it afterwards. What do people want, and representing that. And I'm not saying everything they say will be done, because that depends on resources and so much more, but at least the priorities that we all agree on should be prioritized and acted on. So those would be some of the key things I would work on if I'm given office and power now, and just you know, get that done.
Yeah. When you spoke about diabetes, I do agree, like 100%. You know, my dad died of diabetes.
Oh my.
And not because people didn't know, they didn't check for it.
True.
You know, so to them it was just high blood pressure that he had, but then this person also had diabetes. Not until he died, that's when they realized that this person has this problem. So I think it's something that we should consider even among young people, because most of the foods that we're eating now is genetically engineered. So back then it was a rare disease, but now because of these things that are being done, it's, oh my God.
It's rampant. I'm really sorry about your dad, and you know, it's one of the things that I'm working on right now, just raising awareness on diabetes. I am planning on having a whole diabetic camp, because in Zambia it's just seen as the sugar disease, and
Yes.
it's not that you're allergic to sugar,
Sugar
so,
or
you know,
something.
it's deeper
And it's
than
in
that.
different types.
Exactly. You know, we
Okay.
have type 1, and it's crazy how even a baby, imagine having a baby with diabetes, what happens when they get a low sugar and a high sugar. So it's a rising concern, and like you said, it has so many complications, high blood pressure, for instance, heart disease, stroke.
It's a lot.
It's a risk factor for many other conditions. So it definitely needs more attention in that regard. And yeah, I'm hoping that maybe we can team up someday and do something about it.
We should. young people in decision making. You mentioned something like that, including the people.
Yep.
I want to focus mainly on the young people. Do you think young people in Zambia are included in decision making?
How would you term that decision making? What does decision making look like for you?
For example, let me just take it to where this thing is all about politics. Yeah, they say we need to empower the young people. Yeah, do they get consultation from these young people? And when they get consultation from young people, who has the final say of what actually is going to be implemented and what's not going to be implemented? And then also, do we have young people to actually raise the issues that are affecting us, and young people in leadership, like enough young people in leadership, yeah, to represent us? Because we're not saying they should take over all the seats in parliament. No, we're not saying that. We're saying at least, because I think the youngest person we have right now in parliament should be, I was told it's Mutinta. No, I've forgotten, but it should, Wamnyima is the youngest. He's the youngest person. So from you, your own perspective, do you think young people are actually given that opportunity?
You know, opportunity is a very interesting term, and I'm very particular about terms, especially when it comes to politics, because there are many platforms for young people to voice out and have decision involvement, like decision making involvement on their end. And so from implementation, what firstly, what I would define as what we need for young people to be represented, or what the end goal should be, is that the end goal is young people's issues should be represented and adequately addressed, because they make up half of the population in Zambia, right? So it means that if there's an issue that is affecting young people, we need someone who can speak on it and actually do something about that. So that should be the end goal. Now, the means to that end is not necessarily having half of young people in parliament. It's having leaders that actually prioritize the issues that are facing young people. And in many instances, it's easier to do that when it's a young person representing. It's like, you know, as a woman, I love these posts that I see online sometimes, of videos where someone is able to tell, like, this was made by a woman, this was made by a man. Because you will be able to accommodate what you know your fellow gender wants. So in this particular instance, if a young person is representing young people, they would easily accommodate what young people want, because they are young themselves. So they would sort of have a better idea of what that looks like, right? And so the platforms, definitely, I do believe the policies are there, right? We have policies that allow young people to stand for power, and what we need more is just support from communities, and not just support in terms of, yes,
I love the fact that you said that support from communities.
Exactly. It's not just vote for this person. It's also support in terms of leadership development.
Yes.
It's support in terms of capacity building. It's support in terms of confidence boosting, right? Do we look at young people and just say, ah, there's the young person again, just making noise? Do we look at young people as a tool to just make, you know, whatever it may be? I remember when I got my first, it was like years ago, I got my first job. I think I was about 16 years old, my first official job. And I was working, and someone looked at me and said, hey, Gen Z, she can be speaking on our behalf since they're so loud. And it made me feel bad, because it's like, I do way more than just speak. Like, don't look at me as a tool to just talk and just be loud about things. There's actually work I'm here to do. I'm here to do the same job you're doing, even if you're older than me, right? So we need young people to actually look at themselves not as just a young person with a seat of power, but as a leader that can do something about things affecting young people. Once we create that mindset from the ground on, it will be easier to have more and more young people represented. And if people can see that it's not a young person we're looking for, I do know that that's important. Symbolism and representation is vital. But it's not that we're looking for a young person. It's that we're looking for a leader that can ensure that young people's issues are addressed and young people are heard. So once that is set, then I believe we're good to go. So that for me would be the biggest thing. And also, the platforms are available. I just believe they're not as widely known as many people know. For instance, in budget tracking, right, I am a social accountability monitor. And so before the budget cycle begins, there's the consultations that are done with CSOs and the like. And I've been privileged enough to work with different CSOs in such meetings, and we go and represent what our issues are. And one of them, for instance, when working with SAFAIDS, is we went to them and said, look, we almost have almost 0% taken towards adolescent health on this budget, and it increased to like 0.1%. It's a huge win,
yes,
right? But you know, on paper it still felt like almost zero, but you still get to see that you pushing plus other people pushing in those systems during those cycles actually makes a difference. So looking for those opportunities to engage and to be consulted on and to speak out. And key right now, one of the greatest powers we hold as young people is that we have a lot of technological advancements, and one of advancements, whichever the term, but one of those is social media. Everyone is looking at social media. You know, there are diplomatic decisions that are made on Twitter even before people in that country know about it. They are posted on Twitter from a meeting that happened with certain, you know, in parliament or whatever. So it's important that we actually look at those tools as young people and see how we can influence policy from that direction. Because not everyone will be invited to State House, but everyone can tag the president and tell him this is what we want. And he will read it. So we also have to look at what platforms are there and what opportunities we can create ourselves and grab a hold of. Because at the end of the day, it's not just that we have the right, therefore they have to provide the platform. No, you have the right, so you also have to demand for that platform. So that's how I would see it playing out, and I believe that that's where young people need to come in and be part of decision making.
Just because you're a young person doesn't give you the entitlement to be. Because I feel like right now there is that entitlement. Look, it's been advocated for, but again, it's coming with entitlement to say, because I'm a young person, I deserve it. Because I'm, no, you need to earn it. You need to earn it.
And you know what, one of the worst things is that sometimes you are voiceless, you are young, and we love that, you know, we're here for it, but you end up being given this responsibility, and being young is not enough. You know, you now actually have to perform, and the danger is if you're given that opportunity and you don't perform, it then creates a stereotype with other young people saying all they can do is talk, but they can't get the work done. So which is why it starts from even our education systems. How do we train young people to be rounded enough to actually take on responsibility? And also, let's not view human beings based on what they are. It's not about being a woman, being a man, being young, being old. It's about being a human being and what you can do to contribute to society. And that should always be the focus. So it's not even entitlement, it's that you want to change people's lives, and how can you go about that?
Great. So you sat at tables with world leaders. What is something that surprised you of things that go on behind the scenes that you were just like, wait, what?
Well, you know, they drink the same coffee as you.
I like that.
But also, after you do this for quite some time, and just from a young age, I've always known not to over-expect from people. One of the greatest things we need to avoid, or temptations we need to avoid as human beings, is expecting an individual to be something, right? So I try not to judge them based on who they are as a person, but just judge them based on what they have been appointed to. I always judge people based on their work more than anything else. So behind the scenes, it's you see things and you just prepare your heart not to be as shocked, but you look at that and say, okay, regardless of this, what have you actually done? And that for me is what that would be my major focus even in such conversations with them. But yeah, also it may not be shocking, or it may not be news or like wow, but they're human beings. They're mothers. You be in a waiting room with them, or like a green room with them, and they're calling their daughter and saying, I love you and take care of yourself. And you realize that's the one thing that connects us all, that we're human beings, regardless of what position you hold. And whatever affects a human being affects any other human being. So that's why you can strike a chord with them, that they're human and so are you.
Great. You are an advocate. You speak about a lot of things. Right now we are going into diabetes. That one is, I'm serious about that one. We should do it. What is something that keeps you going even when you feel exhausted and you feel like you're pushing for something and it's not working, and you know that this is something that can easily be achieved? What keeps you going?
The dream in itself. I believe people die the moment they stop dreaming. You know, one thing that will always keep your life going is having a dream in mind. And that dream sometimes is called purpose, sometimes it's called a passion, but having something that you want to see accomplished. And a dream is not for an appointed time. A vision is not for an appointed time. Sometimes you have a vision and you may not even be there to see it come to pass. So that's why I always encourage people to dream big. Like I am one of the biggest dreamers you ever meet. You know, I just believe there is nothing impossible. There is nothing we cannot accomplish. So the bigger you see things, the bigger your drive towards it. And even if it seems like all your efforts are not making it happen or they're not culminating into the desired outcome, you still keep pushing, you still keep fighting, because that dream keeps you going. It keeps you excited that one day Zambia will be healthy. One day young people will be included in decision making. One day everyone will be able to access their services and opportunities. One day we will all be able to take part in whatever thing we want to do. Like whatever that dream is, you hold on to it. You know, you be the, I almost said Nelson Mandela, but that's not the one I'm thinking of. The guy that was, I have a dream. You be the Martin Luther King in your own life. Just hold on to that dream. And the second thing that keeps me going is definitely knowing that, you know, plans don't always work out. I was joking with my best friend the other day, and I said, you know, even God's plans didn't actually work out. Adam and Eve were not supposed to fall, right? God's plan was for them to stay there, for them not to eat that fruit, and for them to multiply in that place. We were all supposed to be pure, but they failed. So we all have plans. And just because in your head it looks a certain way, doesn't mean that's how it will work out for on the ground. So you also need to just keep preparing for that and re-strategize. The plans can change, but remember, the dream should stay. The vision should stay, but keep re-strategizing, keep planning, keep partnering, keep going. And sometimes one person knows about diabetes, before you know it, you speak about it on a podcast and the whole of Zambia learns about it, right? So it's just, there's always going to be that one moment, and don't stop until you get that moment.
Great.
Yeah.
So we're going to do 60 seconds with Natasha. So
Let's
60 seconds, you have 10 questions.
All right.
Yeah. So let's get it. What's one political word the Gen Z needs to understand?
Feel like a timer somewhere.
On your timer.
A political word. I think politics itself, actually.
Yeah. Would you run for an MP or president?
Would I run? Yes. Do I want to?
Maybe later in future.
We'll see.
What's your who's your favorite youth leader in Africa right now? Okay, maybe not youth. But who's your favorite leader?
Household favorite right now is Ibrahim Traore, because my mom is always talking about
oh
him.
my
so
God,
I sort of
everybody.
have like peer pressure, right? And but then I definitely also am leaning more towards Paul Kagame. Always, even in my political science classes, he was always in my assignments. So I feel like he's that leader that I'm always looking at and saying, wow, how was he able to turn Rwanda around? And so yeah, like Paul Kagame, Ibrahim Traore, definitely those would you talk to.
Advocacy or politics?
Advocacy. I mean.
One law in Zambia you would love to change?
A law in Zambia that I would love to change. Well, when it comes to gender-based violence, I feel like it's a little too bureaucratic. And of course, there are deeper laws, but it's the one that off the top of my head. It's a little too bureaucratic right now. And it's a long process for people to get justice for something that's been done to them. So I'll definitely change that and make it easier for women to actually get justice. And also not just justice, but get the support they need after they've gone through that. So that would be one of the things I would look into.
Okay. What is the first thing you do in the morning?
Pray.
Great. So like
either play my worship music or stop my worship music because I fell asleep listening to it, but definitely praying is one of them.
What makes you a proud Zambian?
Proud Zambian. There's so much to be proud about in Zambia. Makes me a proud Zambian. That we're intelligent.
Great. Your time is up.
We think good.
But before we go, describe yourself in 3 words.
Glorious. Creative. God-loving.
Great. Natasha, it was amazing to have you on this podcast. Oh my God, you have a brilliant mind. I don't know if I've been saying this. I hope people learned something from you. I hope you guys have learned something from Natasha. If you have any questions for her, please do put them down in the comment section and we'll get Natasha to respond. Natasha, what are your social media handles if somebody were
to look for me? Natasha Chivesa Mwansa, or Natasha Wang Mwansa actually. So Wang is WANG, and they can find me on any social media platform using that.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, it was nice having you.
Thank you so much, Mary. I enjoyed this conversation, and I'm looking forward to so much more.
Great. Guys, from me and the team, it's bye. Patrick on the camera. Big ups to you. You had a lot of tech issues, but you managed. Sound, Pauline on sound. It was nice. I'll be doing these shout outs every day so that you guys know that this production is by 3 people. So thank you so much, guys, for watching. Until next time, it's bye.